Hey friends, Sarah here. Do you want to sell more on LinkedIn, but without the spam? No one likes being pitch slapped when they accept a connection request, am I right? There's a better way. Mindi Rosser, social selling strategist, walks us through how to build a real relationship that leads to a sale using LinkedIn. Get ready. Hello and welcome to Tiny Marketing. I'm Sarah Noel Block and I teach small marketing departments that are tired of feeling overwhelmed and under-resourced how to build and manage effective and efficient marketing strategies that work for them. Get ready, it's time to dig in and get a big impact with your tiny team. Today is a little bit different than usual. Mindi Rosser is joining me as a special guest, but she lives in Hawaii, so we have completely different time zones. So we pre-recorded this one. Let's all cross our fingers simultaneously to make sure that it airs correctly. I tested it, but we'll see. So today, Mindi Rosser is going to teach us how to social sell using LinkedIn without being spammy. We all have gotten that message on LinkedIn. I know I have, where you accept a connection request and then immediately you get that pitch slap. You see the little ding in your message area and you know that it's going to be, hey, nice to meet you. Can I sell you something? And that's not the way to social sell. So Mindy's going to be here to teach us how to do it the right way, build relationships, and convert those to sales. Hey, thanks for joining me today. It is so great to have you. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. So aloha, I'm based on Oahu in Hawaii. For those who don't know me, my name is Mindi Rosser. I'm the founder of Mindi Rosser Marketing, and I have a signature pipeline building program called LinkedIn for Business, which is launching again this summer. It's for B2B entrepreneurs, subject matter experts, authors, and savvy salespeople. And I help business leaders and experts build their LinkedIn networks, scale their impact, and fill their sales pipelines with perfect prospects.
That's awesome. Is this a coaching program, a course, or are you working directly with them on their strategy?
It's a digital course. So it'll be a self-paced 8-week program.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. That's so needed right now. So you're the social selling expert, and like you and I have been talking for a long time on LinkedIn, like way back when you were in Indiana, and I saw your transition into Hawaii. And that's why today the live stream is only partially, it's a hybrid live stream because we're recording it because we're on completely different time zones right now. Yeah. So I have a ton of questions about social selling.
Awesome.
How do you get started doing it on LinkedIn without being spammy? Generally, people start off with that message, that dreaded message, the pitch slap. How do you avoid that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think a lot of people get really excited when they first hear the term like, ooh, social selling. Like, wow, I can do this on social media. I don't just have to use email. And so they get excited. They do some Google searches. They find some LinkedIn connection invitation template somewhere. And they start like blasting people like, okay, I think I have an idea of who my target audience is. Maybe they run like a LinkedIn search or sign up for Sales Navigator and start doing some searches. And then they just start blasting people. And so I think when you're first getting started, the thing is to pause first and like really be thoughtful, because with LinkedIn, it's not like email, like if you send an email that, didn't really resonate, it just gets buried in somebody's inbox. They may never remember. With LinkedIn, it's always there. Like it never goes away, and it's tied directly to your name and your personal brand. So I think with getting started, first pause and then really think about, okay, who am I reaching out to? And am I being thoughtful? What's in it for them? Because if you're thinking in terms of how is this going to benefit the person I'm sending this to? How is connecting with me? How is engaging with me in some way good for them? If you put yourself in their shoes first, then you're more likely to come across as a real person, as an authentic, human being, because that's what LinkedIn is. It really is more of a one-to-one platform. It's not so much a broadcast tool or a place to just email a bunch of people. So I think just be thoughtful. I think that would be my first thing. And then figure out some experts or some resources, find some good resources of people that you trust that are using LinkedIn well. And maybe it's just somebody within your network that's reached out to you and recently connected and you thought, oh, I really like their connection invitation. Yes, it got me to respond. Or maybe there's like a colleague or a friend that you know that is using LinkedIn well. And I think just getting some feedback before you start sending those connection invitations, just another set of eyes to look at it to make sure that, okay, this approach is good, or no, that just sounds really salesy, like the pitch slap. I think that's a really good place to get started.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's almost like A/B testing, like you would with an email, but you're doing it with people you already know. So you're not risking ruining that relationship.
Exactly. Because you only have one shot, technically. Like you can withdraw. If you send a connection request, you can withdraw it. If it was like, oh crap, I shouldn't have sent that. You can go and withdraw it, but the person still has the chance that they might have seen it before you click withdraw. So you really want to make that one chance count. It's very different on LinkedIn than email.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll get invitations where I'm like, oh, I actually want to know this person. They seem cool. Yeah. And then I'll get others where they are like, can we jump on a 10-minute call in the first intro email? And I'm like, you want to take my time already?
Yep.
I don't even know you yet.
And time is like our most precious resource. And so like when people lead with that, like, give me your time. I mean, to me, that feels like you're asking for more than money. You're asking, like, that's very pricey to me. And I only say that for people I really want to have good conversations with or do business with.
Yep. Yeah. I'm happy. Actually, I've met a lot of my online friends through LinkedIn. So I am happy to get on a call, but I want to get to know you first.
Yep. Don't lead with that.
Yeah, don't lead with that. So in your experience, what have you seen to be an effective first message when you're sending out?
I think it really depends on the target market. So first of all, like, who are you sending to? If you're approaching LinkedIn with the mindset of, I'm really here just to build connections with people in the space, you're coming at it from more of a marketing view or a networking point of view. Like, I want to get connected. Maybe I want to have a number of contractors that I can call on, or maybe you're trying to connect with peers or colleagues. In that sense, it's easier, going to be much easier on LinkedIn with sending connection requests. And you can use something that's a little more like, oh, we both are business owners and I see we're in the similar spaces, or I saw a post that you shared on LinkedIn that really resonated with me. So it's a softer touch. And I think the first message that you send, so that connection invitation, really should just be about a little bit of ego stroking, that never hurts. Like, oh, I noticed you did something cool, or wow, I read this about you. So if you make it about them and not about like, I have something to share with you, I know I can help you. If you focus the attention on them and just like you're noticing something that they've done, that can be very effective. So that would be the first. Like, if it's a lot easier, I think, if you're just out there to just build connections and network and you're not prospecting. But the second group of people are out there to prospect. So they are there with a mindset of a social seller. So they're there to, okay, I really do want to talk to the person on the other end. Eventually, I do want to get to that call. So it can be a little more straightforward, but with your connection invitation, it needs to be much more targeted. So it still needs to be that obviously beneficial. And if you are reaching out to like CEOs or people that are higher level in a company, a large company, the likelihood of you getting through is going to be much smaller than if you're reaching out to like entrepreneurs or marketers or people that are like much more active on LinkedIn. So what you say in that message really has to get their attention, and it has to not feel salesy. So like an example of this, some of the clients that I'm working with, a lot of them will use, like, they have a podcast. They will invite that person to be on their podcast as a guest.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah, it's a good strategy. But as long as that guest actually wants to be on a podcast, number one, because some target audiences, some people don't want to be on a podcast. So it can be a good ask if it's the right target market. And if you ask in the right way, and the podcast is going to be beneficial to them. So if they can use that in their marketing and their strategy some way, it's obviously beneficial and it's not off the wall. Like, why are you asking me to be a guest on that podcast? Like, it has to, they have to be able to instantly make a connection with why you're coming at them with that.
Yeah, that is true. But I have seen good results from that for with like clients of mine and
Mhm.
just, people I network with, inviting someone to be on your show, your
Yep.
podcast, or wanting to mention them in an article and reaching
Yes.
out to them about that. It's always a great way to start that relationship because you're going to be chatting anyway about that project and you get to know each other a little bit.
It's true. And that I think that introduction, whether it's, whether you are just going back and forth in a message, like you're still developing that relationship. So when it comes down to it, whether or not you ever like officially do business with that person, you're still in this professional relationship and you
Mhm.
want that to be positive. You want that to be a very positive experience because people do talk. And so you don't want to be labeled as a spammer or, oh yeah, that guy. I've seen his name before. Oh yeah, it was a horrible LinkedIn connection invitation. Or he was just trying to pitch me, one message after the other after you accept. And then it's just like an endless, stream of pitches.
I have loads of those in my inbox.
Delete, delete, delete. Should I disconnect? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, mute.
Yep.
So when you are trying to sell online, you've gone past, they accepted your invitation. Let's say that. What would be the
Yep.
next step to build that relationship?
Yeah, whatever the next message is, I call it the thank you message. So first you're sending like the connection invitation, then it's like thank you for connecting. So always lead with gratitude, some type of gratitude. I think in that message, just acknowledging that you're appreciative. And then it should tie into whatever you said in your connection invitation, it should tie back to that. So if you said, if you invited them to join your podcast, then you would give them more details about the podcast or the show, maybe share an example of an episode just so they can see it really is a real thing. If it's related to a book or an article, maybe share some more details about the article that you're working on or some of the people that you've been talking to about the article so they can see, oh, this is a real thing as well. So I think it's really tying back to whatever that connection invitation is. I think sometimes they can turn into, I've seen people bait and switch where the connection invitation says one thing and then the next message they send doesn't seem to connect at all.
Yeah.
They either
Like two
tell you
different people
something,
wrote it.
and you're like, wait a second, did you just put this in like an automation machine and just like start mess up the
You
automation?
can tell when someone automates that.
Yes. Or it happens too soon. Like it needs to look like a natural time lapse between when the person accepts the connection and when your message goes out. Like it's at midnight, it's like you probably aren't really sending that, right? So I think keeping in mind like the timing, like act like a real person. Like what would you say in starting a real business relationship? That's what needs to go in that next message. And sharing a little bit about you can be helpful, but just don't make it all about you or talk about all of your awards or how wonderful you are. Still keep the focus on them. But I think just speak to that connection invitation just so it feels very logical. I'm like, okay, right, you seem like an interesting person. Let's keep this going. So you're trying to get a response from them. After they accept the connection and then you send that thank you message, the goal is to get them to respond positively in some way.
Yeah. And I think that it's important to communicate with them, interact with them on the actual platform, like their posts, comment on their posts, be public about your
Yep.
appreciation for the work and the thought leadership that they're giving.
And I think that's a really good point, especially if the people you're reaching out to are a little more engaged on LinkedIn. I mean, it really depends on your target audience. Some people may look at their messages, but they don't really post a lot. So it's kind of hard to do that.
Mhm.
But for those who are active, yes, do your homework. Like upfront, do your homework and actually look at this person's profile, see if they are sharing posts, engaging with them, commenting, just showing some type of appreciation. I think, like you mentioned, for their work, for something that they're doing, because then they see your name again too. Whenever you add a comment or like something, it's like they're starting to make that connection. So the more that they see your name involved with something positive
Mhm.
that is helping them, the better they're going to feel towards you. And like, oh, yeah, this person always kind of comments and posts my stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, they must be cool. I'll talk to them.
Yeah. The other person will start to appreciate you because hey, you're engaging on my posts and
Mhm.
you're bringing it up in the algorithm by doing that. And,
Yep.
you know, just that you resonate with each other when you show that public appreciation for each other.
I agree. And it's that mentality of giving first, without expecting in return. Like, even if you do not ever hop on a call or really get to the conversion event, for this person, the goal is to have a positive interaction. So even
Mhm.
if they just remember you with fondness, I've had people that I've connected with years back say, I've been watching you for the past 7 years and they come out of the woodwork and have a conversation. Why? Because we left it on good terms. And even if we didn't do business together, it's like, I'm still showing up. I'm still doing the same thing. And they see that and they pop back out of the woodwork. So it's like, always think of your network as one of the most valuable things to you, even if you're not doing immediate business, even if that sale doesn't close as fast as you want it to, just leave it in the positive zone. Don't ever take it into the negative zone.
No, you are completely right. I have built relationships with people on LinkedIn where we were interacting with each other for years, but I didn't have anything for them at that time. But I've been building this relationship with them for years, and some project comes up where I need their skill set and I bring them in, no questions asked, because I know them at this point.
You are doing social selling. Woo! Yeah, but it's
well, someone's social selling me because I'm the one hiring them.
How the world goes around. I think it's really about the relationships. And I think sometimes like we put the sale or the ask as like, oh, that's the epitome. That's the biggest measurement of whether or not your LinkedIn sales and marketing program is working. Yes and no. Like you also need to have that relationship building side and that networking side that's always going in the background, always keeping that strong and healthy, because that is the lifeline for your career, the lifeline for your business, if you have that strong network. So if you decide to change businesses or get a job or hop out of a job, leave a job, you always have that network there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a good point on personal branding. You can change jobs, you can change careers, but your personal brand stays. So protect that.
Yes, at all costs. Like, don't let anyone tell you to try an automation tool or try to mass blast connections to people who don't matter, which you can't do now on LinkedIn because they have actually set a cap on the number of invitations you can send in a week. So you can only send 100 now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's good. Hopefully now we will see less spam coming through because people can't send hundreds of connections in a day anymore.
Yeah. So what would you suggest for people to prepare their LinkedIn profile for social selling?
That is a really good point. I think before you start really actively building your network or social selling or prospecting, using it for those purposes, really look at your profile because it is your home base. It's what everyone's going to see if they are accepting a connection from you. And they're going to see if you have no time to fix anything else. The one thing you want to fix is like your picture and then your name. Make sure your name looks appropriate. I've seen people put emojis and stuff in there, like keep it professional. And then your headline section. So, because that follows you all around LinkedIn. So if that's not dialed in, then people aren't going to make a connection to who you are, what you stand for. Why should they even accept your connection request? And it takes 5 minutes, like to fix that headline section. So I would focus on that section and make sure it speaks to who you are now, or if you have recently made a pivot, like in your business, make sure you update that so people know, okay, this is why you're reaching out to me. Oh, it makes sense. Okay, you're in this field or you're in this industry or this niche. So really be clear in that section. And you have 220 characters. So you can use all of them. I kind of like the shorter headlines myself. Like I don't use all 220, but you can. So I think it's just think about what you put in that headline and make sure it speaks to your target audience. And if you're looking for like a short formula, what I like to tell people is, okay, there's like 4 parts to that headline formula. And the first thing is who you are. So basically like your job title or what you would refer to yourself as, whom you help. So that's your target audience. The third one is how you help them. So like, what do you actually do for people? And then the fourth one, this one's kind of optional depending on your line of work, but the results that you generate. So if you put all 4 of those things together, it's like, okay, that's a simple enough formula to follow. You don't have to be a creative copywriter to put it together, but then it's very clear. Yeah, it's very in what you do and how you can help people.
Yeah. As you were running through that, I was thinking about my headline in my head. I'm like, yeah. Well, that is really good to know. And I don't know, I'm going to ask the expert right now, but I think of LinkedIn in terms of SEO too, because a lot of people are searching for certain terms on there. Is there any relevance to this actual thought of mine?
Yes, there is actually SEO. Like LinkedIn and Google are like best buddies. So SEO wise, when people are searching for you, like if people look up your name on a Google search, they are going to see your LinkedIn profile on page one, most likely, unless you are a very common name, then it may not be right there. But that is critical because they're going to look at that first. Most people click on the LinkedIn profile first before the website because usually our website is called something else and may not be our exact name. So they may not make the mental connection. So the first place they're going to look is your profile. So if it is not dialed in, then you could confuse people or you could lose people. So it's really important, I think, just from that search perspective. Then for like the SEO on LinkedIn itself. So when people are searching for somebody like you, it's really, really important to have the right keywords, even if they don't sound as creative. Like if you get too clever with your copywriting on LinkedIn, you're going to not find some of the people that you're trying to get to. They won't know what you do,
That's and what I've been thinking. I'm like, marketing ninjas and unicorns and whatnot, they're not going to be found when someone's searching social media marketing or whatever.
That is correct. And I think a lot of people, I'm like, I love your tagline. It's really clever, but are you going to be found by the people that you want to find you when they're searching? Because a lot of people are going to just use that search feature and try to find, a social media marketing expert near them, or they may plug in a few filters. Yeah. And if you are a ninja, you may not pop up. So, and you may be the best
ninja.
Yeah. So I think really be thoughtful about the keywords you put in your headline. So that's a really important section to focus on is like, okay, what are you putting in your headline? Because that's one of the areas that LinkedIn prioritizes the most. And then your about section as well. So like what words are you weaving in there? What phrases is LinkedIn picking up in that section? Other sections on your profile, like the skills, a lot of people go crazy on the skills section and like you can choose 50 of them, but they're good, but they're not going to help you as much in search as what you put in your headline and what you put in your about section.
Good to know. So we've talked a little bit about automation. We brought that up a little bit. What are your feelings on automations?
Overall, I am not a big fan of automation on LinkedIn. So like when I'm talking about automation, I will clarify I'm fine with using tools like Buffer or Hootsuite, things to schedule social media posts to LinkedIn. I think that's okay. That's totally fine with automation and using it inside of like a LinkedIn message or sending connection invitations. Big no-no. LinkedIn actually prohibits it in the user agreement. So you definitely don't want to use a tool, even if it promises, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be safe. Your account won't get shut down. I've had some clients that have not followed the advice and said, well, I want to go get this really cool profile viewing tool. And please don't. But they signed up anyways. And then what happens like a month later? The account gets shut down. Yeah. And I mean, they got it back. So that was all fine. But I think having your account down for that long, you could actually lose some really big deals or significant business if you just disappear.
That would hurt.
Yeah. So it's not a risk that you should want to take. I have seen people that said they are very cautious and they try to use automation like a human. So they try to be really clever in setting up, how things are spaced out. So it looks like a human is doing it. Mm-hmm. I say just do it yourself. And if you can't do as much, which is nice now because you can only send 100 in a week. So you can't go above 100, even if you are using automation now and sending out LinkedIn connection requests. But just be a human and like shoot for 3 to 5 connection invitations in a day instead of like trying to get a tool that'll send 20 in a day for you.
Yeah.
So find something that's manageable and that keeps that human touch. And then your network will actually be much more strategic. You'll know every single person in your network. You'll know why you chose them to be in your network. You'll know why you reached out. So I think slow and steady wins the game here. It's, think long term, not just, okay, I just want as many people as possible so I can grow my network super fast. Like LinkedIn.
Lion.
Yes. The lion. Yes. The ones who accept connection invitations from everyone. Yes. I don't recommend that strategy at all. Like keep it tight. And if your network is smaller, that's okay. It's like your engagement will likely be higher because the people that are in your network actually care about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people put lion right in their name or their headline. Is that the most important thing about you? Is that you accept everyone?
I see it. I just automatically write them off. I'm like, okay, you don't value your LinkedIn network. So you're not going to value me because you just accept everyone. Yeah. And I think it devalues your personal brand by doing so. And your personal brand is worth more than that. Everybody that's in your network deserves that spot. and they should deserve that spot. For some reason, they are there and you made a conscious choice to add them there. And so treating it like with that respect and that value means that the people are more engaged, means that you are going to get more business from LinkedIn and you are going to be a successful social seller, short term and long term.
That makes sense. So the final step would be closing the deal. How do you move a LinkedIn connection from LinkedIn to a platform where you would be closing the deal, like a Zoom call?
That is the tricky part, because sometimes getting people to move from that LinkedIn conversation, it's like, oh, all of a sudden it becomes real when there's a Calendly invitation sent out, when it is a Zoom call, or when we move to email. I think it's being very thoughtful about how you approach that ask and when is the right time. Each person's going to be a little different. Each target audience is going to be a little different. So I think it's really paying attention to the stream of messages that go back and forth on LinkedIn to kind of pick up on the vibes and the language that you're using. So I think mimicking the language that they're using, if they suggest a time or say, hey, I'm open on Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific. Would that work for you? Maybe you're in Eastern time. And I'm like, well, actually, can you make it work? I mean, like when you're social selling and you're trying to get calls with people, it's like you kind of accommodate the prospect. So I think it's really being thoughtful and in working your schedule around theirs when possible, if you are prospecting. I also think sending people to Calendly links or like sharing your calendar link works for some audiences. For others, it doesn't. For some audiences, especially people that are executives, they likely have a personal assistant who's probably checking their LinkedIn messages for them or is handling their calendar. So I think being aware and cognizant of that and saying, oh, here's my calendar, but if you have a virtual assistant that you'd like me to coordinate with, let's take it there. Some people are really apt to share their emails, and some people don't like to share their emails and really want to keep it in LinkedIn until after the call and then kind of exchange emails, when they're booking the Calendly call or something like that. So it's really just paying attention and knowing your target audience. What is the easiest thing for them to say yes to? I think that's the big question. Is it, Calendly link, so they can pick a time for themselves? Is it, just giving you their email so you can kind of book a time? Is it connecting with the virtual assistant? It's figuring out whatever that is and using that moving forward. And sometimes you do have to test. So sometimes you're like, I'm not exactly sure. So test. I would test with a few different approaches to figure out one where you get a quicker yes, and pay attention to how fast they say yes. If it's an easy yes for them or if people kind of deliberate, and then use that moving forward and see how that works.
Okay. So sort of read the room.
Yes.
How do they want to be communicated with? How do they want this next step to go? And then follow their lead.
That is correct. And a lot of us, we like to have it all scripted in advance. So it's nice to have a template of, okay, I'm kind of following this sequence that I've laid out and how to respond to them, but you need to be able to adjust it like a human, So I think, like you said, reading the room and adjusting accordingly. And then I think the follow-up is really, really important too. So, once they do book that call or once they do give you their email, a little something that says, hey, I got this, an emoji, something small that just signals that you're on top of things, you're understanding what they're sending, you're paying attention to. It's the little things that matter.
Okay. I was going to wrap up, but now I have 2 more questions. So I follow you on LinkedIn, and I saw you post the other day about your strategy for exporting your messages so you could really keep track of them. And then you just mentioned, staying on script. So my question is, do you recommend people have a general layout of how their messages will go, and how do you keep track of them all? Do you use the spreadsheet system?
That's a really good question. So yes, number one, to answer to your question, I do kind of script out the different messages, and I usually have variations or leave room for figuring things out on the fly. But I do like having a layout and a progression of what I'm going to say next to people. That's if I have a target audience that I know pretty well. Sometimes I will, like if it's a new target audience for me or for a client, sometimes we will iterate a lot more and we will be a little more loosey-goosey around what we send at the beginning and test some things to see what works and then solidify that sequence. So it really just depends on the target audience and how well we know them or think we know them. And then the second thing, yes, I keep everything in a spreadsheet. So it's really like good old fashioned. Some people like to do it in a project management tool. I sometimes use Asana. Like if there's reminders that I need to set specific dates to remind me to follow up with a person, I'll usually use a project management tool, but most of it goes into a spreadsheet. So I put links to all the messages in the spreadsheet. dates when we're going to follow up. Did they reply? I put their reply in the spreadsheet. So just really keeping track of everything there and then moving them across tabs accordingly.
Okay. Okay. So you just mentioned that you do this for your clients. Can you tell us how people can work with you?
Sure. So I do work with a select number of one-on-one clients. And if people do want to work with me, you can check me out at mindirosser.com, or you can just look me up on LinkedIn. If that's where you're watching this, I'm here. And you can see the types of clients I work with. I specialize in working with B2B entrepreneurs. So if you're in B2C, probably not going to be the best fit. But if you're in B2B and you're really looking to use LinkedIn and figure out, number one, your strategies, that's usually what I do first. Is that month one, we would kind of flesh out your strategy. Who's your target audience? What are you trying to accomplish on LinkedIn? And figure out the balance of marketing to sales, because everybody's a little bit different in how much of each that they want. But it's really figuring out the blend of the two for each person. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of setting all the, setting everything in motion to make that program happen, and then measuring on an ongoing basis. So basically you can work with me one-on-one, or I do have that, as I mentioned earlier, the course coming out. So if you're more of I want to do this myself, I really want to learn LinkedIn and figure it out, then the course is probably the best fit.
Okay. And that's launching this summer.
That's launched, yes. So June. So it's right around the corner. I'm very excited.
Yeah, that is really soon. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. And tell everybody real quick before we wrap up where they can find you online.
LinkedIn's probably the best place. So it's Mindi Rosser on LinkedIn. It's Mindi with an I. You can also find me on Instagram, website, and Facebook. So either of those, if you just Google Mindi Rosser, you'll find me.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye. Honestly, after that call with her, I went into my LinkedIn profile and started making tweaks based off of our conversation. It was very useful for me. And I hope everyone else found it useful too. And we have a weekly newsletter that comes out every Tuesday at 1:39 p.m. where we provide more actionable marketing tips that are for those time-strapped marketers. So tiny marketing departments, solopreneurs, that type of person. If you need to learn how to streamline marketing, that is the newsletter you want to subscribe to. And I'm going to share the link right here, and it's also in the description wherever you're watching it. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining Tiny Marketing. I help tiny marketing departments create consistent content that builds trust with your audience. Get 1 month of content in 1 week by visiting SarahNoelBlock.com. And take what you learned today and apply it to your tiny marketing department to see the growth that you deserve. Don't forget to follow the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.